Is this a man's world? I think never has there been a more controversial topic. On the one hand, we kind of say, well, yes, it is, and then on the other hand, we feel a sense that, no, maybe gender doesn't mean anything. Maybe everything's just fine and dandy. My feeling on the subject is this. There was a great piece of research done by a gentleman by the name of Hofstede back in 2001, where he looked at the relative masculinity and femininity of different cultures around the world. Now, let's not get tangled up here in that masculinity means male and femininity means female. It doesn't. What he was looking at was those cultures that celebrated values like individualism, achievement, winning, success, material gains, etc. He called masculine, because there's a lot of research that suggests that those qualities are more identified with the masculine, and that those cultures that celebrated collaboration, community, caring for others, compassion, and so on, he called feminine. Now, it's not that one is better than the other. Clearly, we need access to both inside of our cultures. But the research was interesting in that he looked at how masculine cultures were, or how feminine they were. And what he showed was that, interestingly, the most masculine country in the world was Japan, with a score of 96 out of a possible 100, which I found quite interesting. And a lot of the Scandinavian countries, like Denmark and Sweden, were very, very feminine countries. Interestingly, it's in those countries that we see really high rates of natural term breastfeeding, i.e., until 2, 3, 4 years old, of home births. We see the best parental pay schemes anywhere in the world, incredibly different penal systems. It's fascinating to me that these countries that have a lot more femininity seem to work a little better as cultures. I know that's controversial, but I'm interested to know what you think. I'm here to stimulate some conversation and some discussion around this. Now, interestingly, in the research, in the top 20 were 3 countries that were very important to me. I'm Australian. Australia was there. I live in the UK. UK was in the top 20. And the US, where I've also spent a lot of time teaching and leading workshops, also in the top 20. Now, whatever country you're in or from, I highly recommend checking it out, because what it suggests is that for these countries that score very highly towards the masculine end of the spectrum, we are born into a nation that celebrates individualism, winning, success, material success, competition, and those kind of values. So therefore, as women, it calls forth that if we want to be of value, that's how we need to play. And then many of us start a professional life where commerce of its very nature, it's been around for 6,000, 7,000 years, has predominantly been the domain of men. You cannot get away from that. It's only really been in the last 60 to 100 years that women have even been allowed in the space in any meaningful way. It was only in 1975, I think, in this country that a married woman was able to open a bank account without the permission of her husband, for heaven's sakes. These are relatively new developments. So here we are in cultures that celebrate the masculine. We find ourselves in the professional world, which has been a very masculine paradigm for thousands of years, and it's only relatively recently that we've found a space. And then many of us have upbringings and family patternings that tell us, that if we want to be good enough, we have to achieve and compete and be the best and all of that. Is it any wonder that we end up in what we call here at One of Many the mode of superwoman, thinking that the only way to be of value in the world is to achieve, to be the best, to win, and to have to do it all by ourselves? I believe that this approach is what is at the root cause of so much job stress and burnout that we're seeing in women. We're 60% more likely to suffer from it than men. I believe this is what's at the core of so much of our ill health, our infertility, is that at a really personal level, we are becoming incredibly masculinized. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that all women need to be feminine. Far from it. Growing up, I used to think that feminine meant, and I did not want to be that. I wanted to be effective. I wanted to make an impact in the world. I did not want to be some ditzy, person with no opinion. And it doesn't mean that. But we don't have to look too far to see that giving ourselves space to connect, to collaborate, is actually the way to sustainably be effective in the world. If we want to make an impact, we have to change the way in which we're doing it. Business the old way isn't working for our planet anymore. Business the old way isn't working for we women anymore. And if we want to see more women in leadership, we do need to open the space for us to be differently in the workplace. That's going to take some changes of the structures, absolutely. It's going to take some changes of the unconscious biases we all have, and it's going to take some change for us at an individual level around our own empowerment and how we show up. Now, I'm up for that. I don't know if you are, but I'm interested in your thoughts on this. What do you think about the fact that perhaps we live in a very masculine paradigm and that unconsciously we are asked to perform the same way as men? What if we actually challenged this and said, you know what, men and women, we are different. And that's okay, just the same way apples and oranges are different. Not that we're not equal, of course we are, and we deserve equal opportunity. But what if our differences were important to bringing new perspectives to the world? What do you think about that? Let's set the cat amongst the pigeons and see what you've got to say in the comments here. If this video is interesting for you, please do like it and share it with your friends. I'd love to hear what they think about the paradigms we grew up in and how we might be able to change the world for one that works for all women and indeed all men.